Hello everyone, thank you for coming. Today we're going to talk about something very important in Chinese philosophy, the five elements. Now, when we see five elements, it's easy to think of them as elements like oxygen or carbon, right? But here is the thing, it's not quite right. In Chinese, the word for element here is 形, which means movement or circulation of energy. So what does it mean? It means the five elements are really five specific forms of energy in motion. They are not static thing, but dynamic process. So you can think of them more like five phases of energy. Let's dive a little deeper and look at each of these five phases. Water represents flow. Basically, it's about movement. Water is with a medium density and fast changes, so think of it as being full of kinetic energy. Number two, fire is about dispersion and being hollow. Energy gathers on the surface, making fire bright and colorful. Fire is radiating and expanding. So fire is full of heat energy, but also it can be very superficial, but inside the core is empty. The third, metal. Metal represents contraction and gathering. It means it brings outside in and try to compress it. So metal is a high density energy, usually very inactive and heavy in mass. The next one is a little special. Wood is the only alive element of five. Wood represents orderly growth. It slowly develops and iterates according to an inner pattern, like an organic biological entity. It has some expansive qualities, but gentle, kind of like the wind. The last one is Earth. Earth represents settling down. It's like particles that slowly sink after a strong dispersion. It's the sediment of water. Earth represents nurturing and layered deposition. Here is an interesting point. Before it is tightly packed, it can easily be blown by the wind. But after long time accumulation, with increasing pressure, it forms minerals. That's why we see Earth generates metal. As we must describe it, we wrap it down into five elements. They have a range. During this transformation of five elements, so one element may be possess two attributes, wood and fire, at the same time. It may be possible. So in the next part, we will discuss the relationship of five elements. The first, we start to the generation of these. So moving on, these five phases are constantly interacting and transforming. They have generating cycle where one element acts like a battery to support the generation to another. So let's break it down. The first one is water generates wood. Fast flowing water slows down and becomes still. And what happens then? This energy can then be absorbed and stored by slowly growing wood. How about wood generates fire? Wood transforms water from a fluid, easily blendable state into a solid structured form like timber. Wood as a medium density energy collection can support fire's intensive release, but it is important to remember the wood needs to be properly ignited. If the wood is too much and fire is a little, so the transformation cannot happen very smoothly. The third one is fire generates earth. After an intensive release of energy, the original structure is destroyed and atoms become atomic again. forming small particles. Then the small particles sink down. So these particles wait to be reorganized, become earth and soil. How does earth generate metal? In the process of settling, things slowly differentiate and form different layers. Under the pressure of these layers, the energy density increases. For example, coal, diamond, or even iceberg formed under high pressure in the Earth's crust. These are all manifestations of metal. Some people may think the iceberg should be water, but as the energy gathering and become high density, it turns to metal. The last one is metal generates water. It's like a large portion of high energy is distributed in mass, like enriched uranium or iceberg. When they naturally melt, they first turn into a flowing force. To put it simply, if there is a lot, it becomes turbulent. If less, it's relatively static and slow changes. So think of it like a battery. A battery needs a chemical solution to release electricity that's stored in it to make ions move. The water in 5 elements doesn't mean H2O because, as you know, pure H2O, pure water doesn't conduct the electricity. So here in 5 element, water refers to the beginning flow of energy. When water comes together, it becomes turbulence, it's become like a sea and the grand river. It's become a strong push of turbulent energy. Let's move to the next page. Besides generating each other, the elements also have a restraining or controlling cycle. They keep each other in balance. They limit the ability of each other. It's like a game theory or Nash equilibrium. So let's look at how they do this. The first one, Earth restrains water. Accumulated Earth is like a dam or a mountain. It's not soil anymore. So it has an ability to block aggressive changing water. A good example is sandbags stopping a flood. The second one, water restrains fire. Fire is widely dispersing energy. It's very superficial and seems very strong, but it may not be very strong. For example, if we have the same quantity, we put them together. So by default, the water can absorb more fire's energy in the same quantity. So when water makes fire, the fire gets compacted by high density energy. So the fire loses the water weight. As the fire increases, so tremendous amount of fire can dry water. So how do we describe it? We cannot say fire restrain water because in the principle it's wrong. So we invented a new word called confrontation to describe the mutual restraint. So we say fire confronts water when the ratio changes. So that applies to all 5 elements. The third one is fire restrains metal. Metal is high density energy, and during its formation, it might have impurities. We all know gold is the best. The metal with impurity lowers its value. And also impurities are lower density energies. As we said, wood represents medium density. It's kind of like the impurities are equal to wood. All medium density energy can be transferred by fire. So fire restraining metal basically means burning away convertible impurities and leaving behind extremely high density matter to purified metal. That's fire restrained metal. how do we imagine the metal confront fire? The metal can absorb the thermal energy of fire. That is why the metal can confront fire. The fourth one, metal restrains wood. Metal represents absolute high quality and a tendency towards stillness. Metal, we assume, is very heavy. Heavy means it never moves, it never develops. It stay there always. So metal tend to prevent energy from slowly growing. So which kind of energy is slowly growing? It's wood. So imagine an axe chopping a tree. The tree can no longer grow. That's metal restrains wood. So in the society, metal can represent law enforcement. So it's like forcefully stopping events from developing further according to metal's rules. The last one is wood restrains earth. For earth to generate metal, it needs pressure. So it needs to be a layer and a layer again. So the time is not long enough will happen. The metal remains as dispersed ions or small particles. So a rainstorm can mix them up. The iron in the water, in the soil become mud. Then the wood can absorb them. The restraint between wood and earth is more like mutual understanding. The wood helps earth solidify, and earth provides nutrients for wood. Now let's consider this when you observe from the perspective of one of the 5 elements as your reference point. The other 4 elements forms 4 specific relationship with it. Here is a reference point. We can see it forms a circle. The reference point generates the element who drains it. And who drains it generates who consume it. And who consume it generates who restrain it. Then who restrain it generates who generates it. So it forms a complete cycle. So how do we group it? We group it into 2 groups. One group is called aligned with self, and another group is called distinct from self. And we can see there is a line here. So this part is called aligned with self, means the element in this part will support the self or the same with the self. And this part of element will consume the energy from like confronting it, restraining it, or just vent it, or drain it. It is interesting to note that for any one element, there are 2 elements opposed to it, forming a triangular relationship. These 2 are both enemies, but with a twist. One specifically restrains it, while the other is an element it actively restrains. So both can be called restraint or confrontation. For example, we can see the self restrains the consume, and the consume confront the self. And we also can see the restrained one restrains self, and the self confronts the restrained one.